International Politics, Sessions 39. Approaches to International Peace. In the last class, we discussed about the international human rights and the role of NGOs in protection of human rights. Objectives: to know the basic concepts of international peace. Students with practical knowledge about international relations and to know about international peace. Topic: meaning and importance of international peace. The International Day of Peace is observed around the world on 21st September. The United Nations General Assembly has declared this as a day devoted to strengthening the ideals of peace through observing 24 hours of violence and ceasefire. Summary: let's get back to understanding international peace. The first purpose of United Nations, as stated in Article 1 of its Charter, is the maintenance of international peace and security. To this end, the organization is required to take effective collective measures for prevention and removal of threats to peace, and for the suppression of acts of aggression or other breaches of the peace, and to bring about by peaceful means adjustment or settlement of international disputes or situations which might lead to breach of peace. The United Nations has undertaken this heavy responsibility with varying levels of success over the years. However, in the nuclear era, international security, in the absence of organizations like United Nations, is unimaginable. As of March 31st, 2006, 2,247 United Nations peacekeepers had died in the service of international peace and security since 1945. In recognition of their invaluable contribution to world peace, the United Nations peacekeeping forces were awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1988. Basic Charter and Provisions. The basic provisions of the Charter defining the functions of the Security Council and the General Assembly are summarized here, but fuller accounts will be found in the chapters on those bodies which complement the present chapter. Relative powers of the Security Council and the General Assembly. Under Article 24 of the Charter, Security Council has primary responsibility in questions of peace and security. It is invested with special powers enabling it to decide on behalf of the entire United Nations membership, to take collective actions when peace is threatened, Article 39 to 42, and is empowered to negotiate agreements with individual members of United Nations for the provisions of armed forces necessary to maintain international security and to determine how many members shall participate in any collective actions undertaken. The General Assembly, on the other hand, is empowered only to consider and make recommendations either to the Security Council or to particular states on matters pertaining to peace and security. Moreover, under Article 11 and 12, it may discuss but may not make actual recommendations on any special disputes between nations that is currently under consideration by the Security Council. However, though the Assembly is not expressly empowered to take action, neither is it expressly prohibited from doing so in the only Charter provisions touching on the subjects, paragraph 2 of Article 11, which is the focus of conflicting interpretations in a long-standing constitutional controversy on the financing of certain General Assembly-sponsored peacekeeping operations. The actual wording is as follows: any such questions of international peace and security on which action is necessary shall be referred to Security Council by the General Assembly either before or after the discussion. bringing a dispute or serious situations before the United Nations. Although the Charter firmly establishes the primacy of Security Council over the General Assembly in matters of peace and security, it does not stipulate that disputes of serious situations must be discussed in the Security Council before they are discussed by the General Assembly. A dispute may be brought before the United Nations in a variety of ways specified in the Charter, without order or preference. One or more of the disputing parties may bring the matter before the Security Council voluntarily, or the Council itself may choose to exercise its constitutional right to investigate a dispute at its own discretion, or any United Nations member, whether or not it is involved in the dispute, may propose the matter for discussions by the General Assembly or non-UN member that is a party to the dispute may, under certain conditions, bring it to the attention of the General Assembly, or the Security Council may ask the General Assembly to discuss the matter. Despite this liberal provision, the Charter does not stipulate that all political disputes between states should be brought before the United Nations. Article 33, for example, enjoins United Nations member, first of all, to seek a solution of their differences on their own initiative, though if they fail to take this initiative, the Security Council is empowered to call upon them to do so. Only after their efforts to achieve a peaceful settlement have proved fruitless are the disputing parties obliged by the Charter to refer the matter to the Security Council. Again, the United Nations were never intended by the founders to be regarded as the sole international agencies for dealing with political disputes. Thus, Article 52 states that nothing in the Charter precludes the existence of regional arrangements or agencies for dealing with such matters relating to the maintenance of international peace and security as are appropriate for regional actions, and that members participating in such regional arrangements or agencies shall make every effort to achieve pacific settlements of local disputes. Though such regional arrangements are by such regional agencies before referring them to the Security Council. Political background to the United Nations peacekeeping action. The United Nations' effort to preserve international peace and security are the most contentious aspects of the entire work. Because of the inherently political nature of its role and the fact that both the Security Council and the General Assembly are essentially political bodies, not courts of law that appropriation, blame, and impartially hand down judgments drawn from a set of established legal codes. The task in disputes brought before them is to find a compromise solution that is at once satisfactory to all parties, based on the political realities of the world situations and consistent with the principles of the Charter. In this way, each local dispute brought before the United Nations automatically becomes a dispute involving the entire membership, as nations express differing views of the appropriate action to be taken by consensus of the membership. The involvement of general membership in all disputes is precisely what the founders of the United Nations intended, as the meaning of enduring collective international responsibility for political solutions that are both just and realistic. However, in order to provide a counterweight to the unavoidable taking of sides, they established the principle of unanimity among the great powers, by bestowing the right of veto on the permanent members of the Security Council. The workability of this principle in practice presupposes a basic measure of cooperation among the great powers. As events turned out, however, unanimity among the great powers should be proved to be a chimera. Within a year of the signing of the Charter, the world was in throes of the Cold War, and the United States and USSR were engaged in a power struggle. The effects of this unexpected political development on the United Nations work in maintaining international peace and security were immediate and devastating. Each dispute between the smaller nations that came before the United Nations was subsumed under the developing power struggle between the giants. As a result, between 1945 and 1990, the Security Council was deadlocked again and again by a 279 veto. Furthermore, the Charter requirements for agreements and provisions of armed forces for the United Nations could not be met, whereas the Soviet looked to Security Council and the veto as its power instrument in the United Nations. The United States looked at the support of majority vote in the General Assembly in order to circumvent the Soviet veto in the Security Council. The United for Peace resolution has been invoked three major crises: the Korean War, the Suez Crisis, and the Congo Crisis. At the end of 1980s, the demise of the Soviet Union and the Cold War dramatically changed the state of affairs. Types of action taken by United Nations. An agenda for peace. In response to the profoundly altered global political situations, on 31st January 1992, the Security Council met in a historic summit session attended by 13 heads of state and 2 foreign ministers. At the session, the Security Council requested Secretary General Boutros Ghali to prepare an analysis and recommendations on ways to strengthen United Nations peacekeeping efforts. In June 1992, the Secretary General submitted an agenda for peace, an important document challenged member states to adopt their world organizations to the new international situation with more effective and rational peacekeeping procedures. Preventive diplomacy. Define is action to prevent disputes from arising and to prevent existing disputes from escalating into conflicts. The Secretary General listed a number of different actions that constituted preventive diplomacy. That includes confidence building measures, fact finding missions, early warning, and observer status at the United Nations, preventive deployment of United Nations forces, and establishment of demilitarized zones. Peacemaking. Action to bring hostile parties to agreements through peaceful means, like those outlined in Chapter 6 of UN Charter, which is negotiation, inquiry, mediation, conciliation, arbitration, judicial settlement, or appealing to regional organization. Peacekeeping. Defined as the deployment of United Nations force to the field, usually with the consent of the parties to the conflict. Peacekeeping could involve military, police, and civilian personnel. peace enforcement. Although not officially defined as a separate concept in the agenda for peace, the Secretary General did propose the creation, under Article 43 of the Charter, of forces which could respond quickly and forcefully to imminent or out-of-right aggressions. The Secretary General proposed that these special units would be on call for a quick response in the early stages of international crisis. Peace is the way out of inequality and violence, and a golden ticket to enter a new, brighter future for humankind. All of these are important in this epic endeavor, and the future generations need every hand they can get towards a more equal, peaceful, and a beautiful world. Find the prime subject of United Nations: collective security, national sovereignty, national integration, national independence. Answer B. Which article of the United Nations Charter states that the UN shall possess judicial personality? 2, 5, 1, 6. Answer C. Which of the following act is responsible for the creation of United Nations subject to the Indian Parliament? United Nations Act of 1948, United Nations Act of 1949, United Nations Act of 1946, or the United Nations Act of 1947? Answer D. Whose association or organization is the UN? ILO, World Bank, WHO, or the above? Answer D. Minimizing a dispute may involve appealing to the world peace to increase credibility, make it hard to back away from confrontation, help to avoid overreactions, appealing to national survival to increase credibility. Which of articles of the United Nations Charter states the purpose of UN? 15, 2, 1, or 5? Answer C.